Dear trading friends, today we have an altcoin special, just as I promised in yesterday's video. I've already done a bit of analysis on the altcoins, and everywhere I see a similar pattern emerging, which could indicate a bullish reversal pattern. I hope it doesn't keep dropping like a waterfall. Right now I think we might go a bit lower. I'll show you why in a moment, at least for Bitcoin, before we move on to the altcoins. Yesterday in the video I mentioned that we have a CME gap, and I believe that with the market opening we might go further down and close the CME gap, which is around 85,260. But that's only on the CME futures chart. We can't compare that with Binance or similar exchanges. Accordingly, I also believe that we could go further down from here, and I'll show you in a moment where my target level would be. Currently, if we look at the liquidation heat map, there's about another 100 million in liquidations sitting at around 83,267. And that could get triggered. It doesn't have to happen, but where would that be if we now draw my Fibonacci level again for a possible bullish entry? Because on the 4-hour chart, we're at least trying to get a bit more bullish right now, but it could also just be a short recovery that would be between 84,000 and 83,462. But the liquidation level is just below that, and maybe that gets triggered with a candle wick, and then hopefully we can look forward to higher prices. Because the liquidation above us is of course massive. Right now I'm only looking at the 3-day chart, which I currently find really awesome. We can see here that we have a large cluster exactly in this area. And this time it wasn't the case that we accumulated an incredible amount of liquidity above and below us over the weekend. Instead, we have valid clusters that now give us a bit more information. Because in the last 2 weeks, if you can remember, we had an extreme number of positions both above and below. It seems like people have just started to give up a little. That's exactly what's happening with Bitcoin right now. For those of you who don't know my trading strategy yet, I pretty much trade everything using the Fibonacci trading strategy. And I have an update for you here because, as you know, I draw in my long positions and I say I'm going long here and set my stop loss just before that. Then I specify my price. I know my take profit up here, just as a small example. And then I do the same thing down here, even when I move it up. But now I've done something for you. I've calculated where the next stop loss is. Based on a Fibonacci level, I calculated it exactly so that the same stop loss that comes in at 0.5 is also already set at 0.618, which of course makes entering the price much easier. If you don't know it yet, check out my channel. I would of course appreciate it if you subscribed. I try to provide the most neutral trading content possible. I'm neither extremely bullish nor extremely bearish, but instead try to set up trades in both directions as best as I can. You can find it here, the video's simplest trading strategy, and for example, if you haven't yet, or learn trading step by step to become a pro trader. There's a whole playlist for that. By the way, while we're on the topic of promotions, there's currently a special offer at Bitget. If you're not on it yet, I have something for you. But if you're already on Bitget and registered through my link, I also have something for you. It's valid for 6 more days, and it looks like this. Deposit $100 and get $400 as a position voucher. Or deposit $500 and get $800. And once you've registered here, you'll find a second link in the video description. There you can click on Claim Voucher. However, you have to do this in your browser. Otherwise it won't work. You'll get 14 days of VIP1, lower fees, plus another $200 trading bot voucher and $200 position voucher. That means you can deposit $100 here, get $400, and then get another $400 here. Or I say, I deposit $500, get $800, and get another $400 here. An incredibly good deposit bonus. PIONEX has something similar. 1 day and 23 hours left for anyone who wants to join. I've already claimed my $3,000 bonus. You can then choose one of these 2 trading bots. At the current price, of course, we're very far down, which is obviously an advantage. That means you can now grab a huge bonus here and simply open trading positions or trading bots without any risk. And you don't have to gamble away your own money. But now back to the chart. I said I entered something new, maybe take a quick screenshot here. I added this to my Fibonacci and I simply activated another Fibonacci, entered this number and made the color a bit more transparent here. This way I can always see in advance where my stop loss is from 0.618. Exactly. But now let's continue with the altcoins. I've prepared a little something. ASTER looks very interesting to me. Let's stay on the 4-hour chart for a long-term perspective. So, what exactly looks super interesting to me about ASTER right now? We've already had the opportunity to enter several long trades here. But what I really like at this point is that if you look closely, we now officially have a structure break. Because here, let me quickly turn off the RSI so you can see it a bit better. And this is actually a valid signal on the 4-hour chart. We're moving from this bearish structure further into a bullish structure. Even though we've now broken through to the downside with a retest, what I see here as possible entry scenarios, since we've only just now broken above the last high with this new high, I see an opportunity for myself. That I say, I take the complete low to the complete high, and you can see here where it is currently finding support. Astra here at the 0.5 Fibonacci, which was also very valid. The next entry would be at the 0.618, and now I have the possibility for 2 entries, provided of course that we get a bullish continuation of the price. Otherwise, there are 2 stop losses here, and then that would be a done deal as well. That's all for Astra. But if we now talk about the similarities that will come up with the next coins, if we look at this here, we have 2 stop losses, yes, with LITECOIN, which I took here. For that, this trade was very, very good. If you see it, the previous one, this trade was also damn good. That means here I took a reward of 4.3 twice, and here I lost a risk of 2. But what I don't like about LITECOIN right now is that we have continued bearish price action here. Even though we have a breakout to the upside here, I don't see a bullish pattern here. Also, overall, there's no bullish pattern, because what we have here isn't really valid to the upside or downside. With LITECOIN, I rather see the possibility, if we look into it now, if we go down here, we never tested the 0.5 Fibonacci. The further down I go, if we now see a price increase in LITECOIN, and I move this a bit further over from this high to this low, then I see the next rejection zone at the 0.5 or 0.618 Fibonacci. If we go through this in detail again, where are these levels? Of course, they are very, very interesting. We have one here and also one up here. And if we look now at where these rejection zones are, these yellow lines, we can see that in the past this was very strong support, and we shouldn't overlook that. Here it was also resistance with the candles, and that would be the first level. The second level, if we should continue to rise, we see here this strong support that we had before, which then became a rejection zone. But here as well, you can see that this was a support and rejection zone. That means for me, these are now the next possible trades I will enter if I'm looking at a short position, which I will of course be willing to risk. But what do I see if we have an increase now, depending on whether it's explosive or if we continue to rise? I would then prepare myself by looking for where we might see a reversal into a bullish pattern so that we can keep moving forward. And depending on how high the price rises, I would then set my Fibonacci accordingly so that this short position trades into this long position in an attempt to keep moving higher. Then I would have 2 positions in profit, one of which will work out, and one might hit the stop loss or be set to break even. And that's how I would approach it. That's all for LITECOIN. XLM. XLM also looks very interesting. At this point, I've already prepared a bit because XLM is, and this is the pattern, which we see in very, very many coins. Because everywhere, if we look at it, and you'll see this in all the coins when we go over here, we have a price that continues to fall. But everywhere we have a rising RSI. And we see this on the 4-hour chart. And that's actually a bullish divergence. It's already starting to play out here to some extent. But now I've prepared something for XLM. As you can see here, and you'll notice this with almost all the next coins as well, we have a very strong support line and a very strong resistance line. XLM has currently tested this area very nicely and is trying to catch a breakout. But if we look at it now, depending on how high we go, because it's very valid, we have several lows here that are now gradually being broken to the upside. I'll move this over a bit now. You can see 2 break-even trades here. I always set my stop loss to break even in time. But what we have here are these zones that you need to pay attention to. We still don't have that. We haven't broken through the last lower high we had. That's not valid yet. Only when a candle closes above that, then for me it's an opportunity to say from now on, if we go a bit higher, maybe we'll have the next rejection zone here. Then we would have broken through the last lower high with a candle to the upside if the candle closes there as well. And accordingly, that would be the opportunity for me to get a rejection and possibly take some political entries. Because with XLM, we also have to be careful. As you can see here from this high down to here, we have not touched the 0.5 Fibonacci level even once. And just look at where the 0.5 Fibonacci would be as a rejection zone. That would be right here. The last lower high would be broken to the upside 0.5 as a possible rejection or 0.618. And accordingly, you can already roughly calculate in advance depending on how far we go. Where can we go? Where could you take a short trade? And where could you then position yourself long afterwards? That would now be quite valid for me to look at on the 4-hour chart. So not a short-term trade, but really trying to go short here and at the same time build up a long position down here. Then I have 2 positions in profit with a price difference that is about, we could then see where that would be around 8%. That means one position is definitely in profit, while the other might lose its profits again and hit 1 or 2 stop losses, no matter which direction it goes. And that way I'm definitely protected no matter which direction things go from here. Of course, it could happen that these stop losses up here get hit right away and we don't go down at all, but that's just part of the game. At the moment, I see SUI as very, very difficult. Very difficult to use. I've already marked something here, but with SUI, we also have a 4-hour shutdown. Exactly the same thing I told you about. We have a massively falling price and a rising RSI. This could be a long-term bullish divergence that we're playing out here at some point. But here too, I again see the possibility, just like I said earlier with XLM, that from this high to this low, we haven't had a valid Fibonacci reversal. And if I draw it like this, and we might start to rise now, I also see a possible rejection here at the 0.5 or 0.618. It's important, of course, to always compare everything a bit with the liquidation heat map. I still have XLM in there now. You'll see XLM in a moment. Looking at it, if we pick it up down here, it doesn't look so good. But purely from a Fibonacci technical perspective, and if we do break out, because that's important too, we only have a possible bullish structure on the 4-hour chart so far. If we break through exactly this last lower high here to the upside, because we had another high here before it went further down, then we should rather take advantage of that possibility if we actually continue to move higher. In my opinion, depending on what news comes out, but I think it's unlikely that we'll just keep going up. Instead, I think we'll get a rejection somewhere here or here, possibly see a reversal, and depending on where we go, I would then use that reversal for both long and short positions. If all of that works out, it would look like this again. Depending on how far we go up and where we get the reversal, I would enter my Fibonacci long here again, and of course go in with shorts here. The worst case that could happen here is that I hit my stop loss twice and take 2 losses because maybe we're now rising parabolically. But what would need to happen for us to rise parabolically? At the moment, it doesn't really look that good. But even here, you can see this is a bullish reversal pattern. We have a falling wedge that is formed here, and that would actually be, from a trading perspective, a possible breakout, then at some point a rejection with a retest, and then further upward movement. Let's take a further look at HBAR. HBAR also looks quite interesting to me because HBAR now also has its trend, and I'm really only talking about long-term trends here if we look at the 4-hour chart. It has now also broken out to the upside, and with HBAR we already have the example of what I actually discussed with you in the last 2 coins. That was the last lower high, so I'll just remove this here again. And this here was also another lower high, and even that lower high, so exactly these last lower highs that we had, they have all now been broken to the upside with this candle. Let me do it again, not exactly straight, but let's do it like this. The last lower high was broken to the upside with a massive valid candle. And here as well, the last low was also broken to the upside. The only thing that didn't quite fit with the candle close was breaking above this high, but we have broken through 2 lower highs to the upside. That means for me, we're already heading more in the direction I actually want to go. If we correct now, and I think we should go a bit long here and I want to take some trades, then these are exactly the levels I'm looking at right now. If we go further down, I have the opportunity to look at support zones since the probability of a trend reversal lies here, but simply to pick up some liquidity from below once more and then continue moving upwards. We just hope we don't see another waterfall sell-off, to be honest with you. But again, if we take a quick look at HBAR now, where do we have liquidation zones, especially in the last 3 days or even the past week below us? Where does it get interesting? This low here, we definitely don't want to see that. That would be 12.5 or 0.125, which would be even lower. And that would obviously not be good if we drop that far. But if we maybe look a bit closer at the last 48 hours, then we can see where we still have liquidated levels, 13.5 and 14.04. 13.5, so that could serve as possible support. Of course, you have to take all of this with caution because overall, and we shouldn't forget this in the long term, it's still a bearish trend. Because what I also see here is that in the long term, we could actually enter a rejection zone again. And that would be exactly this level. I'll remove this now. If we continue to move higher now, we see a new rejection zone here. And where is this rejection zone located? Here as well, I'll include this line again. You see how simple and quick you can actually do the analysis with this trading strategy. I definitely recommend that you take a detailed look at it. I'll remove this for a moment now. But rejection zone at the 0.5 Fibonacci. Look at how valid this appears here. That means you shouldn't be fooled here unless some incredibly bullish news comes out. But if we rise here, this looks to me like a very valid rejection level, extremely good. That means I can enter a short position at the 0.5 here, and depending on what happens, I won't let it run all the way down. But if we continue to rise, I could then look at where my 0.5 or 0.618 bullish entry is. And I could maybe extend that further if we keep going higher, and then we would even have another valid zone here. But you can also see the other level, which is very valid, the 0.618, which can serve as a possible rejection zone. That's it for HBAR. Doge. I have to say it's exactly the same with Doge. We have this bearish, this bullish divergence everywhere. We can draw that in everywhere. Looking at the long term, by now it's already been played out 3 or 4 times here. But with Doge, we also see a similar pattern now. That we're in a falling wedge here and could be heading for a possible, really I have to stress, only possible bullish reversal. Here it gets a bit trickier as to where you would enter. I'll show you in a moment how it is and why. I'm going to remove this here now because we've already tested a Fibonacci level twice here, or actually just once I think if we look at the 4-hour chart. I'm really only considering valid long-term situations here because if we take the high to this low, we can see we've already dipped in here and this was actually already included as a take profit. And that means the next valid level, I think we're slowly but surely getting there now, would then be exactly the 0.5 as a possible rejection zone. The 0.5 Fibonacci actually lines up with the last lower high, and that's very interesting. Take a look at this, the last lower high. If we don't break through that more convincingly with a candle close above it, I really see that we could go further down from here. And look at the 0.5 Fibonacci, I can drag it over a bit further. I don't think I need to show a support line here because the 0.5 Fibonacci has been support for a very long time. And then here, right on point, it was rejected twice more, which is why this stands as a possible scenario for a new short trade. If we continue to move higher and maybe reach the 0.618 or a bit above it, then at least we would have a bullish reversal. In terms of price action, meaning the price structure, because we would break through this level to the upside, and then I see the possibility again, depending on where we go, but I'll keep you up to date, that we might correct downwards again, go in somewhere, and maybe then see higher prices. I told you yesterday in the video that we would rise. That's my current trading strategy. But I also think that in the long term, we'll hit very strong resistance, and I'm really curious, especially with Bitcoin around 98,000 to 100,000 US dollars, where I'll be looking to enter short trades again. We'll get to that, but I don't have much in there right now. We also had a break-even trade, a loss trade, but if we look in here, we have, unless I'm mistaken, something similar. No, we don't have a nice pattern there, I have to be honest. But what we're currently seeing with AWARE is this consolidation zone, which is also where the last highs were, where we were rejected every time. If we break through that to the upside, then for me, a short is off the table, and only then would a long entry be valid for me. Because this exact zone here is super interesting, and as long as it isn't broken, I still see all of this as a bearish continuation. That's why you really have to be careful here if you're already going long now. What do I see as the next possible rejection level for AAVE? Because we've already picked this up here and picked something up here, as we can see here. And look where the 0.5 would come in. That's no coincidence again. I'm taking this high, which was the last fib level that we never picked up to the upside. And we can see we're right in this zone that I've marked at these candle highs. So for a small test as a rejection downwards again, that would be interesting. If we move further over, get a candle close and then go down, then I have the opportunity to draw my bullish Fibonacci again, because then we would have broken through this bearish trend, at least on the 4-hour chart, to the upside, and then I see a correction down to the possible bullish reversal so that you can then enter the long position. Because right now, we simply have bearish price action and we can't ignore that. That's just the way it is. Moving on to Crow, I think I just saw something as well. Crow, exactly, super interesting Crow. Here too, there's a massive bullish divergence. We're falling and falling and falling on the 4-hour chart. The RSI keeps rising and rising and rising. It looks super interesting, but here too, of course, we have to be careful because we've already worked through a level here, a Fibonacci level. Not quite though. No, look guys, we didn't reach that. That means we might even be able to pull this Fibonacci level further down. So we say, okay, I'll remove the previous one here now. So this here could be our next possible entry. Either this or the next possible rejection zone would already be here as well. Always compare that with the liquidity, meaning it does look very valid. The The 0.5 Fibonacci could already come into this rejection zone here, or the 0.618, which probably looks even more valid to me because we also had this support zone here again. What happened in the past, we can see that. Here too, you can see how long and strongly the price actually acted here. That this volume level, this can also be seen here in the past. These are all just little coincidences, but it's very, very ideal to try to enter a short trade here, because if we go higher, you would just take a stop loss at most, and that's part of trading. But overall, if we look at it like this and remove everything else, we can also clearly see this falling wedge here. And normally, if you remember back, Bitcoin bear market 2000. In 2021, we were waiting for a long-term falling wedge to break out, and especially what we're seeing here with altcoins, and Bitcoin could actually lead to a bullish reversal. What we're seeing now, because I still have the 0.5 or 0.618 entry here, as soon as we get a candle close above this level, and this really applies here too, the candle close must be above it, ideally above this high, but even this high would already be interesting. If we close above it here, then that could be a sign that we might break the structure to the downside. Break it and then prepare ourselves for a possible long position if we go further down. As a small example, it could even come to a point here where it consolidates for a very long time, like I mentioned earlier about the next possible bearish level, that would be here within this area. So if we really get into the 0.5 or 0.618, depending on where it is, then we would have a valid level here where we are now consolidating for a long time. The market makers are positioning themselves for either long or short. We'll see then whether it's a breakout or a breakdown. And accordingly, that would again be a valid long entry level for me. Of course, I'll keep you updated on everything in the next videos. Chainlink, similar pattern, and you can see here what I mean. We have the same thing everywhere. We have a bullish reversal pattern that has occurred here, plus a bullish divergence, which is actually very valid. And with Chainlink, I've already drawn that in because here we've already hit the Fibonacci levels time and again. The next bearish Fibonacci level I could see now would be, for example, this one here. Here too, we can see that very clearly again. At the 0.5 Fibonacci, we had a support zone here. And in the past, there's something else I notice. Here too, there have been wonderful reactions in the past, either as support or resistance before breakouts or breakdowns occurred. Or rather, the next one is the 0.618. You really shouldn't underestimate that. If we rise now, you could say it's an opportunity to take advantage of. Again, you can see here how valid that was. You could take the opportunity to include another correction, because what happens if we now trigger the 0.5 or 0.618 Fibonacci to the upside? Then we would also break through this bearish price action that we currently have to the upside. And again, it's no different here. If we really do continue to fall, I can position myself for the next long entry. Because if the short works out and we get a reversal here and I go long, then I have two positions in profit. If we keep falling, my short remains in profit. If we keep rising, I've already set my stop loss to break even anyway, and that position goes along for the ride. Then I also have Solana. Solana is exactly the same. What makes Solana doubly interesting? Do you remember when I told you we have a target level for Solana at the prices you see down here? And we actually almost reached the very last one. That was this correction here. A structure break from bullish to bearish, took out the next high, and after that, these are the target levels we have here. And that's exactly where we've gradually entered now. Take a look at this. This is really very exciting. You can also see how long the 1.414 Fibonacci acted as support. After that, it dropped down to the 1.618. And here too, the support zone repeatedly faced rejection. So it's a support zone, and now we're heading to the next 1.809. And here again, you can see how strongly the price is reacting. Support, then resistance here, and now currently support again. And here too, if I remove this now, we see exactly the same thing. Such a clean falling wedge that we have here, and at the same time, once again with Solana, an incredibly clean bullish divergence that's more or less occurring here, which is actually a reversal pattern, but we don't know when it will happen or when exactly the reversal will take place. We could fall even further, but despite that, this bullish divergence would still remain intact. If we break through the pattern to the downside, it wouldn't be good. But with Solana, it's a bit more difficult. We first have to reach around $144, $145. With a candle close above so that we break through exactly this level. It's very clear here again, so that we break through exactly this zone to the upside, because then we would really break this downtrend more validly with the price structure moving up, and only then do I see the possibility for my next move, depending on how high we go. I could imagine, for example, up to here for a possible reversal and then going long again. So always short and long at the same time in this case, because the next thing we have here, where do I see a rejection zone? At the next Fibonacci level. Because you can also see here, if I draw this in, we've already hit a Fibonacci level here. That was the 0.5, which was hit very cleanly, meaning that afterwards we went lower. But if we now take the Fibonacci level here and go lower, we never hit the 0.5 or 0.618. And now, of course, it gets interesting. How high will we rise? That would even happen if we say we would close this fair value gap here. If I open it here, it will light up right away. That's what I mean. Maybe go in here into this fair value gap or even up to this order block at that level. This order block is very valid, especially if I remove the 0.618 here. Now take a look at how valid the 0.618 would be, provided we rise that far. That was our last strong support zone before we had a massive sell-off candle. And I keep telling you in trading analysis, when we have a strong support level that is then broken to the downside with a high volume candle, the probability is very high that we will retest this level. And in this case, that would be exactly the 0.618 Fibonacci. And if we really do go up that high and dip in here again, then I see the possibility of a rejection. Then I have a short position open, and here I can place a new long, so I have two positions in profit again. Now to wrap things up, let's talk about XRP. I know that was a bit long just now. That really was a bit long. That was also the last short position I took partial profits and then closed the rest in profit. Also very clean. But here too, we have exactly the same scenario, exactly what I showed you earlier. Here we have this bullish divergence. For those who might not understand why I say we have a falling price here, because we were lower here, no. A Fibonacci, an RSI, is always tied to a candle close, not to a candle wick. That's why I also draw it at the candle close. And you can also see a nice support zone here with the bullish divergence on the RSI as a possibility. What we have here now, we need to be careful again. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, let's quickly draw that in again. We have a possible rejection zone here, which would be here, but it's not that clean, so we would have to use this one here. XRP is also broken out here now, actually very cleanly. Take a look at that. I didn't really have that on my radar earlier. There was constant rejection here, but again, we have important levels that we need to break through to the upside. The Big Beluga smart money concept also shows us this for sure. These are these order blocks here, and these order blocks show you nothing other than these lower highs that we've had again and again. And only when we break these one by one, so this would be the first valid level we need to break to the upside, then the second and the third, but even breaking the first one would be enough for us to move further into a bullish structure. How do I see this now with XRP? That's of course very interesting as well. The last time here we had the Fibonacci, the bearish one. If I draw it now, the further we go down, we never reach the 0.5 level. Where would my rejection zone be now? Exactly at 0.5 or 0.618. You can see it again here as well. It's just so precise every time that it matches up with truly valid levels from the past. That means here we had such nice support before we continue to move down from here. Let's take another look at 0.618 as well. That was the previous support again. Let's see if there's anything else in the past. Here too, you can see again how strongly these levels have already reacted in the past. That means we shouldn't ignore this in the future. If we rise this high, then that's already very good for the 4-hour chart. And here as well, I do nothing different. I just check, okay, how far do we rise and where is my next possible Fibonacci entry? Because if we now move upwards, you can see here that this 0.5 Fibonacci level could become very interesting in the future if we rise, since we've been consolidating here for quite some time. We have a lot of candles building up volume here. If we get a breakout to the upside, there's also a strong likelihood that we'll come back down again because there will definitely be a lot of liquidations here in the future. Here too, I would go short and then immediately go long afterwards, because going long blindly right now is not an option for me since we're still in a bearish structure and I don't want to trade so heavily against the trend. If you have any coins that you want me to include next time, let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to cover them in the next video. If you want an analysis like this, you know I'm now prepared for the next rejection after a possible pump and then for the next long position so I can take advantage of both directions. Because the bullish patterns that we have everywhere now in the form of falling wedges, and if we look even further, we can also see how long we've been gradually consolidating down here. But also the bullish divergence at least makes me optimistic for a recovery now. I hope we're not wrong and that we don't just drop even lower now for some reason without hitting a Fibonacci level, because then I wouldn't be in a trade. But this way, I still have the opportunity to enter a short position on a recovery, and if we really do fall further, I can take profits everywhere along the way. It was a longer video, but I presented several coins, and as you can see, something very, very similar is happening everywhere at the moment. Bullish patterns, bullish divergence, rejection zones above us, possible bullish price action that could develop here. We'll see if that works out. Of course, I'll keep you up to date, and until next time. Ciao, ciao.